Hey guys, Mike here. It's all about what a day in the market, and today I'm going to do something a little different and pay homage to a certain group of investors because boy, were they dedicated and they deserve it. And I was thinking today, I said, you know what? You always got to remember why you start something. Why did I start this channel? For those who've been with me the whole time, you know, it was started for regular folks because I knew we were being lied to by mainstream media. We were not being told the truth in school about what moves markets and all this fun stuff. And then, of course, we evolved because you guys wanted the daily updates, the daily updates on top of some of the educational stuff. And so in this one, I'm going to pay homage to those group of investors that deserve it, that have stuck with a certain stock through thick and thin. Okay, you deserve it. And, you know, even though I hadn't been riding this one up with you, I'm happy for you. Couldn't be happier for you. Okay, and so we're going to do that. Also, I'll say that for those who don't know, the advanced money destroyer, which I guess people have nicknamed AMD, is destroying more money in after hours. We'll see if that's going to move up. Google's red right now. So tomorrow will be an interesting open, to say the least. And then, of course, we'll get into some other stocks. One that looks just like the stock we're actually about to talk about right now. But let me pay homage. Again, this is not a Palantir channel. But I'm just going to go ahead and say, look, if you have stuck with this thing through thick and thin, especially since the beginning, because I was in the beginning. For those who've been on the channel long enough, you know, I used to cover this a lot. And used to be in a guy in like 12 or something. And it went up to 34, 35, I think was the top, came back down. And I got out at like 27, 28, I think it was. And then just never got back in. Let me go ahead and I put this in. Here's what's funny about Palantir. I mean, I put this in the Discord. Let's look at AMD. We just talked about this. It has a $185 billion market cap, $7.53 billion estimated revenue this quarter. Palantir, $220 billion market cap, $828 million revenue this quarter. But here's what you got to understand about the market. This is why I started the channel. We've talked about this a million times. And I don't know who Lynn is, but I totally agree with this. Palantir is one of the most expensive stocks in the market. PE of 419x, market cap of $237 billion, revenues of $2.9 billion. It's never been cheap. But here's the deal. In fact, it kept getting more expensive. If you focused only on valuation, you missed the entire run. One major market lesson I've learned: valuations are not a timing indicator. Often the most expensive stocks go up the most, and the cheapest stocks keep falling. And this is the truth. And you can see this chart. This thing was coming down, the PE was coming down, all that fun stuff. And when it started ramping up and getting crazy, the stock just kept on going. How many times have we seen this with so many different stocks right now? It's amazing. It is not the valuations that move these stocks, not until you hit bad times. That's when they start talking about valuations. And I love this meme that was put out this morning, and it kind of represents probably some people watching this video, but it's like Palantir stock is extremely overvalued, market cap 80 billion. Then you scroll down, they're starting to get even more upset. Market cap of 160 billion. And then of course today, 220 billion. No, that describes it. But this is why you deserve homage. I mean, look at this right here. Look at this price. 10 to 35 was the top. And then of course it went down and down for like 3 years. And then started to come back up, and then the election happened, and look at that. Like a freaking cliff, the side of a cliff, straight up. And for the first time, it did something. I don't know if I've ever seen this with Palantir. It actually was the top on the options market. It knocked off all the premium kings: Tesla, Nvidia, Meta, you name it. And look what they were doing today. When people kept trying to short it, calls, 86 plus million in cumulative calls are poured into Palantir since the market opened, compared to just 9 million in puts. And people were trying to buy puts. They were trying to get it pushed down when it was, I think it started at 20% and went up to like 26% on the day or something for the high. And then Palantir is now the third most traded ticker in the market today, surpassing Nvidia, the SPX, and Tesla in volume. And so the options market got involved, and that's something. Now, I was just thinking today, I was like, I don't really hear about it too much in the options market and options flow, but it was today. It drew in a lot of people. Okay, now that can mean one or two things. We'll talk about in a minute. But again, look at this right here. I love this. Somebody put this out. Yearly stock gain 61%. That's a yearly stock return, excuse me. Gross margin 81%, free cash flow 37%, estimated fair price $68. I don't infuriate a lot of people, but I'll show you what they're talking about. And when you look at this, I remember covering this when it first came out public. Remember, it's been private for a long time. But the government percentage of revenue versus commercial was so much higher than it is today. So much higher. I remember we talked about it. So they got to fix it. They got to fix it, right? And the CEO's got to put up or shut up instead of just talking. And you look at the valuations two ways here. Reverse discounted cash flow. You can see at the bottom, I'm not going to read that. You can if you want to. Achievability, extremely hard, right? So next 10 years, I'll read it. Free cash flow growth got to be 33%. Terminal multiplier, 25x. Rate of return, 10%. Valuation B, the normal way to do it. Discounted cash flow model, $68. And you can see next 10-year free cash flow, 26%. Terminal multiple, 25x. Rate of return, 10%. And so we'll see, you know, what's going on. Because right now, I mean, I think everybody agrees, even when you look at this chart right here, you say, okay, we know it's not valuations. We get that right there. This thing has just gone to the moon. It has respected the fibs, though. So I drew some new fibs on here saying, look, to the upside, if it keeps going up there around 124, 125, right? It's going to be, I saw somebody put a price target on that, as a matter of fact. Again, though, when it broke this level and went into price discovery, that is, oof, on steroids, right? Absolutely on steroids. And so, again, that's the upside. To the downside, says respect this fibs. Just look at 97.64. If it happens to come back down, and then the next level is going to be like 90, if it does. And the question is if it does. That's why I kept telling people, man, that's why I told you those traders stepped out the way. They weren't about to try to short when it was looking strong. It's just you get these freight trains that have a cult-like following. They have a name, Palantirians, and they buy and buy and buy. And all of a sudden, then what happens, you've seen it many times, when they really start to go up, then the chasers start to come in, the ones that FOMO, right? And so that's what we get to see for the next probably month or two. Like, what happens now that people are really pushing into this? Now the options market is behind it, just driving and driving and driving. What's going to happen, right? Because every, you know, and it's not peeing anybody's Cheerios, but you look at that chart and you know at some point in time gravity will take effect. There's no doubt about it. And they're just going to have to keep trying to kill it and kill it and kill it. So if they end up continuing to get government contracts, growing the commercial, we'll see how long the market is going to allow it to do its thing. All right. Because everybody, remember Tesla? Remember Tesla back in the day? It was always, everybody said, it can't be stopped, baby. And then for how many years? Once it got that peak, it started doing this again. Right. And so, and because remember, it wasn't valuation driving it up. So that's what we're going to see. And, you know, like I said, my plan was actually to get back in, but it went up so fast after the election. And I had a person I know, he's not a friend, but a person I know, his biggest position, and he's a huge Palantirian. But he was like, man, this is getting, he's, you know, also looks at valuation, looks at the chart, and he was like, nah, man, he sold a huge chunk in the 60s, I think it was. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, really? It's like, if he thinks that. And of course, today he's like, wow, he just stunned, right? Because sometimes charts, valuations, none of it can tell you where it's going. It's just when the masses get behind something, it goes crazy. I mean, look at Carvana, for crying out loud. I mean, who would ever guess that thing would just keep going up and up and up? All right, it sells cars. But there it is, you know, and you get those. Chipotle was like that for the longest time, right? It just kept going and going and going. The difference between this one and those two is the fact that those were in low float stocks that can be manipulated up. This is not a low float stock. Okay, so congratulations to everybody. Let me know in the comments if you have rode this thing from 7 all the way up. I hope it's life-changing money, brother. That's what I hope. And sister, I hope it's all life-changing money for you. That's what I hope. And I hope it keeps going up for you. Honestly, I really do, because I don't have a dog in the fight. So I'm just here to cover it. But I just want to pay homage where it's due. You stuck in there, man. So now moving on to the other parts of the market, the SPY. I told you I would put dark pool levels in here. Definitely mark 602.17 on your chart, because this thing got rejected. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times today. And so, you know, that level. So we need to get above that. Okay. We get above that, we can move higher. Again, with these other, you know, earnings coming in through the night, we'll see how it goes. We got Chipotle, Google, AMD. We'll see how the calls go, if they move up or not. But again, we held 600. All right, that's key. So if we break 600, coming back down to 598. If we can get above 602.17 right there, then we'll head back up here to around 603, 603.50. And we're not even that far. It was crazy. We're not even that far from all-time highs, which is just nutty, right? But when you look at it, there's what? There's a big old 4-hour fair value gap. We'll mark out what should happen if we get above 602.17. You can move through this, but unless we have some kind of news or a news candle to push through, it should slow down. We do have data tomorrow, though, that may push us right on through. So that's what we're looking at. And that move from 602.17, where we're at now, would be almost a 1% move to get up there. And so that's a big day for SPY. So just keep those levels in mind right there. Now, IWM, what are you seeing? Rejection, 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 rejection off the 50. So the 50 has been a pretty good brick wall up there. We are sitting here around 227. We've had that level marked out for a while. With that trend line, that's where we're sitting. That's where we closed at today. So again, if you get above that, put the 50 on your chart, it's going to be around 230-ish, somewhere in there. That is definitely going to be the resistance if we bust through that. This is another one, has a big fair value gap right there as well. So that should slow it down. And again, unless we have some news event, the 10-year drops like crazy and we just rock it. Like we've seen before, something, or we have some news come out about tariffs, because that seems to be happening every single night. Honestly, I don't know if you saw last night's dump at midnight there. So we'll mark that out. Again, down below, I would just follow the fibs. I would just look at the 0.618 and the 50 fib to mark as far as downside is concerned. And again, every time this tariff news is coming out, what's happening? It's getting bought up, and it's getting bought up really fast, okay? And so if we have more news come out today or tonight or in the morning, we'll see what happens. Now, PayPal reported, and they got absolutely hammered like dog meat. The market did not like what they had to say. So of course, boom, big old drop down into the 70s once again. And this is one of those stocks, I mean, it's just never, I mean, just look at the sideways movement here for like the longest time since the election, right? I mean, 83 to 92, 83 to 92. Unlike the rest of the stocks that were just sucking up all the oxygen. And we'll get into what the whole sectors do. They tend to move together. So if one goes down, they tend to bring the rest of them down with it. And when we look for where the discount's at, and we pull this down from where this whole rally started, you can see the 50 fibs sitting right around 74. Okay, so again, there's some support around 75, 76.34 right there. And so again, I believe the 200 is also in that area, if I'm not mistaken, which is right there below the 50 fib. So anywhere from 73, 76, 50, probably look, see if it's going to get down there for a bounce. I don't know if it's going to be the permanent bounce, but it definitely could be for sure. And when you look at the sector as a whole right now, you can just kind of see, I mean, there's XYZ, not really doing much of nothing right there. If we come over here and we pull up SoFi after they reported earnings, again, just kind of after that huge run up, taking a break right now. And so, you know, none of these are moving super fast or to the upside. All of them were at one point in time, obviously. And so, again, you know, this is just something, these do tend to move together. So PayPal is weighing on the rest of these, all right? So you go back to PayPal. Again, if you start to move back up, you got some, I mean, a lot of damage control, but this isn't, you know, I'm going to mark this area out just in case we do come down here. But this isn't one of those kind of stocks where the market is just in love with it, right? You've seen so many stocks have just huge returns over this. And we remember they were coming up when they had, you know, their stage one, how long it took for them to finally keep pushing up. And I'm going to pull the volume profile here. You can see right now that's actually in a gap. So if we fall down, the 200 actually makes a lot of sense. But you just don't want to lose that 76.50 area either, or you going into a volume gap. And so just, you know, we'll see what happens with this one. Him kind of reminds me of Palantir. You see this when we talked about it. Really respects his fibs, just like Palantir. Big moves up, right? That was the buy area right there. It was in a big discount on the golden pocket area. Just rocked it ever since. So if this continues to move up, you know, you're looking at 42.50, 45.50. If we pull back, just look around 35.17, anywhere between 34, 35.17 is where I'll be looking on HIMS. They do report earnings, I believe, next week. So we're going to get to find out what's going to happen right here to them. Actually, it's 24th, so not next week, maybe the week after, I believe. So we'll see what happens on earnings with this one. But, you know, if you're looking at, hey, where do I get in on a pullback? I'll just pull a fib on it and say, if it does pull back tomorrow or whatever, when it starts to pull back, because all of them do, they don't move just in straight lines, 33, 35, somewhere in that area right there. If it continues to move up, we pull this up and say it does get there, right, 42.90. That 50 fib is going to line up right with that support area right there. And so, again, that will be a good one to at least DCA in if you really believe in the stock and stuff, especially for earnings. Now, Nvidia, save us in the last, because it really didn't deserve to be covered, but I'll cover it anyway because we drew this trend line, I believe it was in Sunday's video. And what do we hit? Bam. That's what we hit this morning at 9:30 and never could get back up to it. You have a lot of anchor VWAPs. You got a 4-hour fair value gap right there as well. If it does get above that trend line, and so there's a lot of stuff in here that can hold this one back, right? And now AMD reporting, if it opens red, probably will drag semiconductors down with it, you would think. That's normally what happens. That's what Nvidia did to the rest of semiconductors. See the anchor VWAP I got attached to where we dropped on that DeepSeek or whatever it's called news, as well as some others. And so it definitely has a lot to get through. Plus, you also have a 200 moving average right above that fair value gap. And so that will be another one to see if it can get through. But again, we'll put a line right here on the low right here, which is around that 113 area. And so that is your low. And so, you know, the chart don't look great. That's for sure. Doesn't help AMD, supposedly. Market didn't like what it had to say about that one. And so again, 113 is your bottom right there. Needs to get through that trend line. Anchor VWAPs, 200 moving average, 4-hour fair value gap. And so we'll see how this one goes. But, not looking how many Tesla didn't do much today either. You didn't really hear too much about the options market either with either one of these. And it doesn't report to the 26. So you could just have it hang out, in a range, right? Anywhere from 112 to 125, 126. That could be a possibility. We're just going to have to see what's going to happen, because you remember the president and the CEO met, but I didn't hear anything about their meeting and what was actually happening. So if you do, let me know in the comments. I didn't see anything come out of that one. And so looking at earnings for tomorrow, some big ones: Uber, Walt Disney. It's going to be two big ones. You'll have Toyota. And then in the afternoon, we'll have Ford, Qualcomm, ARM. So a chance for those to bring up the semiconductor stocks as well. And then, of course, I said data, we do have it. ADP non-employment changes at 8:15, not 8:30. Final services PMI, ISM services PMI, and crude oil inventories. Remember, we're a services-based country, so keep that in mind. And so anyway, buckle up for more volatility, no doubt about that right there. Buckle up for more tweets and all kinds of news coming out about tariffs and stuff. And so if you got anything out of it, please hit the like and subscribe button. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you about signing for membership. Less than McDonald's combo, and that's everything you get with it. And I will see you guys tomorrow for another fun one. Have a good one.